bronze sculpture represents the first lunch counter sit-in protest in Wichita, Kansas back in July 1958, where they literally sat on the counter. The protest was at Dockham Drugstore, the largest drugstore chain in Kansas, protesting for the end of segregation at the popular diner. After 3 weeks of protesters sitting on the counters all day, the owner agreed to serve black patrons. The First Amendment protects political speech in traditional public forums, such as streets and parks, which is the largest level of First Amendment protection. At Century 2 on November 3rd, former President George W. Bush presented at the Wichita Metro Chamber of Commerce annual meeting. Outside Century was a group of peaceful protesters.
I'm with two different groups. The medical marijuana group that I'm with, we had already planned to come here before because we do know that there's Republican support amongst the people, and we were hoping that we could make our voice heard here, and it kind of gelled together with the 99% protesters and some of the American Dream, the MoveOn.org type stuff, and everybody's just gotten together. There's people from the Tea Party here. There's people that are actually from the Republican Party here, and we're just fed up with politics as usual.
I think that it's totally reasonable that we have the right to peacefully assemble and protest. It's my personal belief that if we don't have the right to gather together as a group and fight for what we believe is right, then the only thing that's going to happen are the groups that have the most power will be the ones who are fighting for what's wrong.
The First Amendment protects time, place, and manner restrictions. The City of Wichita's Community Events application enforces these restrictions concerning the public safety. Safety items needed would be water, food, tables, barricade items like cones, sandbags, and road closed signs.
Permits are okay when they're taken into context. Once you take permits out of context and you say you have to have a permit to do this across the board, then I think that you're starting to infringe on people's rights. And I think that if you're going to have a permit, then you need to be able to present logically why you're requiring this permit for this circumstance.
The city and I think maybe the county has tried to use stupid things like you need a permit to do this and a permit to that when it comes to protesting, but our constitutional rights says if you want to protest something, you can protest anywhere you want.
We used to demonstrate and protest at McConnell all the time. No problems with it as long as we respected their rights and they respected ours. And we knew where the lines were, and we were careful not to cross those lines. If we wanted to commit civil disobedience, like at McCollum, we would cross the line, and they would arrest us.
Protesters' own safety is also at risk. Occupy Wichita provide food to all the groups of protesters, making sure to keep their energy high and enthusiasm intact.
Stay alone. We very rarely will you ever see a single individual, and if you ever see a single individual out at the park or here or anywhere speaking with us, not on our behalf but with us, then they know that their safety is in their own hands. But most of us, we never do anything alone. We've actually occupied Lewis Park several weekends in a row, and it was never just two people. There are always at least 3 or 4 people sleeping in shifts to make sure each other were safe.
Century 2 was built in 1969 before protesting safety zones were implemented for city buildings. In 2009, Interest Bank Arena was completed with safety zones for protesters. The green zones represent the safety zones around Interest Bank Arena, where protesters are designated to be. The area where I'm standing right now is one of the designated safety zones outside of Interest Bank Arena. Sedgwick County's purpose for these safety zones was to ensure all persons and vehicles may safely enter and exit Interest Bank Arena's surrounding area. The Wichita Community Events application's most important requirement is that the number of law enforcement officers needed for an event.
The police have been so cooperative. They've been nothing but supportive of us. They come, they ask us if we need anything. They give us tips and pointers as to what we're doing wrong to avoid dealing with more trouble later. They've been wonderful, and we couldn't be more grateful that we have people like the WPD who are taking care of us as opposed to Oakland and getting hit in the head with a gas canister.
All in all, Century 2's protesting was peaceful and somewhat quiet. One bystander, however, was intimidated by some of the Guy Fawkes masks the protesters were wearing.
as I was walking by, I saw an old friend of mine there, so I stopped to talk with her, and a fellow in a, I guess they call him a Guy Fawkes mask from that V for Vendetta movie, interjected himself in the conversation, and I was telling my friend that I find the masks a bit discomforting because I associate them with this anonymous hackers group, and I regard them as an anti-free speech organization.
As the sun was setting and George W. Bush's event ended, the protesters packed up their signs and belongings and peacefully left Century 2.
Oh,